Hey guys, welcome to the MC Anime Podcast. We cover anime, geek culture, Japanese aesthetics, and Asian studies. We are a multi-fandom podcast, and you can expect to hear topics in your favorite hobby or fandom activity potentially. You can find MC Anime on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also, please check out mcanimepodcast.com, our website. Furthermore, stay tuned in for another episode.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of MC Anime. MC here, and today, the MC Anime Podcast, we are discussing American animation discussion. Basically, the American animation discussion entitles a little bit about, American themed animation and coming directly from America, and overall, was it like to have the different animation market be what it is like, and deliver on shows that are actually very memorable. So further ado, animated shows since The Simpsons that give us perspective of what's good, not good, and stuff like that. So the primary story of Walt Disney introduced animation to generations of viewers, but for decades the cartoons that aired on American TV were a lot dumber and sloppier than their big screen counterparts. Disney's work was art, televised animation was broad, cheaply produced, and mostly aimed at the indifferent younger audience. The Flintstones may be a cultural touchstone, but it makes for a terrible viewing experience. Even the best stuff often couldn't escape the taint associated with the genre. Looney Tunes, the classic Warner Bros. As well. The actual shorts were packaged as entertainment for kids when they started airing on TV. All winks from Bugs Bunny and the social commentary sandwiched into each segment's interventional visual gags. Then came The Simpsons. So, Simpsons revolutionized television in number well-documented ways. Most of all, the show proved what televised animation was capable of, what it could be cosmopolitan and subversive and topical. That is with the perfect canvas for everything from deeply felt character work, incisive commentary to brilliant dumb jokes. The best Simpsons bits somehow managed to be all those things at the very same time. The Simpsons has soldiered for nearly 3 decades. Its current incarnation, which launches its 30th season, bears only a cursive resemblance to the show at its creative peak. Seasons 2 through 8 or 10, depending on who you ask, perhaps its greatest legacy since The Simpsons debuted. English language animation has grown by leaps and bounds, using freedom offered by the medium to craft the increasingly sophisticated series. Thanks to The Simpsons' social satire, psychological depth, the horror of adulthood, and the frustrations of intimacy all became fair game for animators. Studios under the auspices of MTV, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, and now even Netflix had offered opportunities to a wide range of voices and styles. Even the stuff seemingly meant for children has gotten vastly more refined, moving light years ahead of a cheesy, glorified toy commercials and lame slapstick of earlier eras. We are in a moment to replicate what animated gems, but also the 30 best shows that have reached the greatest heights since The Simpsons. The Simpsons debuted 30 seasons ago. The list includes English language to keep its size manageable, and particularly because Japanese anime is often altered, dumbed down, or just poorly translated for overseas audiences. Some of the shows we do borrow from Japanese anime style, and hand-drawn Korean animation has also been the industry standard for shows developed in America since the 70s. Beyond that criteria, our final picks ran the gamut. Some are joke-heavy, some others are operatic, nearly slightly odysseys. Their animation styles range from quick turnaround cutout to lavish landscapes, and the protagonists range too. From vigorous adolescent boys and senile teenage girls to wash-up 50-somethings and bored office workers. One of their special joys of animation is it can appeal to young children to geeky adults, and often the best stuff does both. So, first season I'm discussing is Doug. Nickelodeon, was really huge in animation. So when Doug Finney, Patty Maneyes, Skeeter, and the gang made up the jump from the ladder to the network in the former 1996. For a while, Doug was home to the most reliable goober in children's TV, love horn for Patty, the adorable dog named Porkchop, his chick older sister, and more than his own share of #kid problems. Some reasons still think often about him having to write an essay on split deposits. Still don't know what those are. Ideal everyman for bullying kids like me. His show also had the best character names on TV today. Tippy Dink, Roger Klotz, Mosquito Valentine, Dickens would be proud. That's Doug. Next series on the list is Over the Garden Wall. This wonderfully strange animated mysteries debuted just a few years ago on Cartoon Network, but owing to its surprising allure, has already established itself as an all-time great. Patrick McHale's limited series aired 5 nights in a row and unfolded with severe logic of dreams presenting two brothers in an enchanted forest who don't know how they got there or what they were supposed to do next. At first, the series is mystifying, but as the characters assert themselves and the weirdness, it resolves. Over the Garden, not just a fairy tale, but a sliver of coming-of-age story with reference of both the real world and the need to run away from it. Starring voice talents like Ela Wood, Melanie Linkstey, and Christopher Lloyd. It's an artful fantasy for all ages. Powerpuff Girls from 1998 to 2005 was really influential in that particular genre for what it represents. Heroines in battle. Female cartoons that were made few and far between. These bubble-headed heroines redefine what a girl show could be with the help of Chemical X. Created by Craig McCracken, the mind behind the equally zany and creative Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Power Girls is about female heroes, but really it's for everyone. A 2016 reboot was met with an average of 2 negative reviews from fans from the original, but the legacy of Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup remains. The member of the equalizers on screen, bravely facing villains of the learn self-assurance, how to work as a team. In their endearing pastel-wearing way, they're examples of gender equality and heroism. It's thought that we use more on screens today. Show us showing. So another one is Arthur from number one on the list. 1996 to present. What a wonderful kid a day has been thanks to 21 seasons of Americans' favorite advert. Created in 1996 by Mike Brown, Arthur has won over the hearts of audiences by doing exactly what most of the viewers are doing. Hanging out with the best friend, in this case the lovable white rabbit, getting through the school day and trying to figure out how this crazy world works. From navigating the trials and tribulations of being a big brother, to grappling with long-distance relationship friendship, Author experienced all the problems and questions kids face every day. Over more than 2 decades, the show has documented the best and the worst of growing up you can be. Author has reminded us, as long as you have a library card and that treating yourself to a sundae at the Sugar Bowl is always the best way to end the day. When that's all that's left to do is wait for Powell's spinoff. Who doesn't leave a good Asian puppy with the British accent? So, The Critic, 1994 to 1995. Sure, not every joke on this occasionally crude broadcasting series landed. There was sometimes crass, given for the mean reference or obvious insult when perhaps nuance would have been more elegant. But when the critic was funny, man, it was funny. John Lewis J. Sherman, a sad commentator of Gene Sickle and Robert Ebert, but mostly without the charm of dignity, is both bore and offended aesthetic, a guy trying to stand a thought the decline of culture while also contributing to it. He was surrounded by delightfully insane people, most notably Jay's gonzo petition mother, Eleanor. The Critic, created by The Simpsons writers A.I. Gene and Mike Race, ramped up its predecessor's non-sequitur and slight gag humor, which was perhaps proved the way for Family Guy and Seth MacFarlane's other derivative shows. What felt fresh and exciting at the time, but not for nothing, the show's opening credits were a cheering tribute to the cozy Manhattan of Meg Ryan comedy It Didn't Stink Really. Then we have Star Wars The Clone Wars. And then this is from 2003-2005. Denny actually collaborated on the Powerpuff Girls and created 2 other shows for Cartoon Network: beloved game-defining Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory, each with their own brilliant charm. But for all money, the work that stands out the most is the entry of Star Wars franchise, 25 shorts that tell a story that takes place between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. They have been strung together on YouTube in a feature-length Star Wars animated story, which have some fans say is the finest film of the franchise. Darcy leads his creation in grace and elegance that George Lucas' second trilogy was lacking, and makes much of Star Wars landscapes, taking an operatic, majestic tour through events leading to the fall of the Galactic Republic. Much of the series unfolds without dialogue, instead of relying on sound and careful framing to establish renaissance with the audience. Tahaki's vision paved the way for Lucas's own CGI cartoon, the very similar titled Star Wars The Clone Wars in 2008, but more importantly, it was an early indication of what artists could do with the Star Wars franchise. 15 years later, we are tight in the grist of the franchise cinema, but Takahaki's work points to how beautiful, refreshing, and exciting franchise work can be. Aeon Flux, 1991 to 1995. Priya Pure Chung developed Aeon Flux for MTV while working on the popular Nickelodeon series Rugrats, an iconic series in its own right. While its legacy has been overshadowed by a regrettable 2005 adaptation starring Charlize Theron, the animated series deserves better. It's a bizarre, acceptable landscape of erotic tension and surveillance of dystopia. Aeon is an agent trying to destroy her nemesis and thus lover, Trevor, a scientist from the fictional feature country, Bragna. Especially at first, she keeps dying, but the show persists anyway, laying on the tensions of heroism rather than the conclusion of any particular character arc. It's unsettling, nasty, fluidly drawn, deliberately unsatisfying, with an attention to theatrics that was ahead of its most of other anime of the era. Chung's features are all drawn long and lean, with near-expressive faces that evoke haunted paintings, surprising given that Eon Sigil is the inspiration. Eon Frost is so potent and unsellable that it's ridiculous made to the cable television in its first place. But that was the story of MTV in the 90s. So, Robot Chicken, 2001 to present. The brainchild of the nerdy 90s cool Seth and Green and Matthew Sinrich, Robot Chicken's irrelevant stop-motion spin on pop culture was one of the earliest original programming hits for the Cartoon Network's Adult Swim block. Being rejected as a segment for SNL, Mad TV, and other sketch-related comedy shows, Green and frequently on-screen co-star Breckin Mayer led a cast of familiar voices as every pop culture sacred cow from Disney to the Smurfs gets the sparky robot treatment. Green and Steinrich's obviously love for an encyclopedic knowledge of the properties they skewer came to a head with the 3 Star Wars specials before the saga was popular again. They were so clever even George Lucas, Martin Hibble, Billy D. Williams, and Jar Jar Binks himself, and ahead the best, got in the fun. It's both incredible that Robot Chicken did not get sued in the oblivion over copyright claims, and impossible to imagine something like the Lego movie existing without it. So, Beavis and Butthead, 1993 to 1997. The electricity, crude, and endless quotable Beavis and Butthead defined juvenile humor for 7 seasons on MTV. It's the title characters with violence and heavy metal stuck on instant chord with disinfected members of Generation X and led to pioneerly dumb, dirty humor that eventually paved the way for even more outrageous fare in the years to follow, from South Park to others. 2000 revival couldn't quite capture the magic of the original, proving that the great Julio and his TP-deficient bunghole was decidedly of their time. 25 years later, no one wants to waste their time watching 2 idiotic teenager tastemakers crack themselves with crass jokes and obnoxious commentary. King of the Hill, 1997 to 2010. After Beavis and Butthead, Mike Judge moved to a more mature material, day-to-day life of Honk Hill. So, humble Texan and salesman of propane accessories, and his family, neighbors, and friends, slight humor and rich humanity. Judge's series spent 13 seasons capturing a slide of middle-class America, rarely depicting on television. As the world spun out around him, Hank and his heart of gold tried their best to keep up, both hilarious ends and Shakespearean levels of inner turmoil. But no matter what befell the Hills, Hank's commitment to being a man of decency and morality remained steadfast. I can't help but think if he were around today, Hank Hill wouldn't want to make America great again. He'll believe it's great already. Avatar: The Last Airbender, from 2005 to 2008. Avatar: The Last Airbender first premiered on Nickelodeon. It was written off by some as another kitschy action cartoon starring a boy with a blue arrow on his forehead, but others were hooked by the show's intricate world building and hard-hitting life lessons. Now, 10 years after its series finale, which drew a massive 5.6 million viewers, Aang and his friends' adventure is reveals one of the greatest feats of animation to date. And Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Kozichko. The Last Airbender uses the aesthetic of anime and Asian cultures to craft a world where kids fly around on bison will try to critiquing imperialism. Aang's emotional authentication brings out the best and at times darkest sides of he meets. These dark modes of The Last Airbender truly separates itself from other cartoons of its era. Aang's quest for enlightenment can raise challenging questions, but the show can never let the heavy material weigh it down. As a viewer, The Last Airbender teaches without trying and showing example what it means to show unconditional devotion to a greater cause. The Boondocks, 2005-2004. 2005-2014. Over the course of 4 seasons and 55 episodes, was nearly a singular entity. The series, which followed lives of brothers Huey and Riley Freeman, as well as their grandfather Robert, premiered on Adult Swim in 2005. And from the very beginning, the series established a sharp, satirical perspective, critiquing society with particular focus on race relations. Its psychological center was Huey, appropriately named after Black Panther Party co-founder Huey P. Newton. If he and Riley sound familiar, that's because both boys were voiced by none other than McGee King. Yes, the show could be vulgar. Yes, it's made frequently of the, different words, a source of controversy early on. Yes, the show's final season went severely downhill thanks to the exit of Aaron McGruder, who created the comics which the show was based, but season 4, Shaky Landing, was not disappointing enough to undo the show's legacy, which, by the way, includes a Peabody Award for one particularly controversial episode. Space Ghost Coast to Coast, 1994 to 2008. The groundbreaking Franklin series, a talk show parody, is haphazardly from vintage footage and new bits, hosted by Space Ghost, a D-list Hanna-Barbera superhero, deserves a spot on this list. If only for the myriad of shows it's begot into entirely or indirectly. Harvey Birdman, Tony at Law, Aqua Teen Hungry Force, and the Eric Andre Show, but most certain its own merits, Space Ghost Coast to Coast was more than worthy. It made history as Cartoon Network's first original animated series, and eventually inspired the channel's entire Adult Swim lineup, popularizing a single absurdist brand of humor long before purposefully weird non-scripters, loose improvisation, and cleverly repurposed found footage became de rigueur for a certain brand of cult television. It predicted internet culture, in other words, and would probably be represented in memes today if majority of its episodes hadn't been only available to stream. Legend of Korra, 2012 to 2014. For many children in the 2000s, Avatar: The Last Airbender was a defining series, but its offshoot, The Legend of Korra, was even better. Both shows follow supernatural gifted adolescents with the ability to manipulate or bend elements. When Avatar appeared, Aang was 12 years old. Korra, his reincarnation, was 17 during Legend of Korra. For a season, that age seemed to be intentional. Many Korra fans grew up watching Avatar, and the show's sequel matured with them. Both series approached the subject of growing up and confronting one's dreams, one's demons with candor and heart, and both were rife with political parallels. But Korra definitely upped the ante by tackling increasing complex issues. In its finale, in which Korra walked into the sunset, not with any of the male characters she known throughout the show, but with her female friend Asumi. It's nothing short of groundbreaking for a franchise aimed normally at least at kids. Tiny Toon Adventures, 1990 to 1992. Originally conceived as the original film, Tiny Toon Adventure set to capitalize on the late 80s trend of launching what anime origin stories for beloved children's characters. Think Muppets Babies or Flintstones Kids. But soon Warner Bros. Got Steven Spielberg on board, and the famed director had no interest in retreating Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and the rest. Instead, he created an entirely new tiny crew, led by Buster and Babs Bunny and Plucky Duck. Looney Tunes shorts were always injecting topical and adult humor in their animated antics. The Tiny Toons were no different. Voice actors were asked to slip seamlessly into improvisations of pop culture, from the day Barbara Bush to Julia Roberts, Madonna, Macaulay Culkin, Roseanne Barr, and Spielberg himself. Warner Bros. Would be a dial that irrelevant attitude up to 2 for the very next animated project, Animaniacs. Pinky and the Brain, by the way, were based on the 2 Tiny Toon writers. But while the sparky spin-off adventures of Yakko, Wacko, and Dot may have burned a little brighter in pop culture familiar, Tiny Toons Adventure has the distinction of having inspired the second season of Donald Glover's Atlantia. Not bad for a little duck and a pair of cute bunnies. Hey Arnold from 1996 to 2004. It's hard to think of a show bigger than the heart of Hey Arnold. That starts with the animation. Which renders Arnold's unnamed house-based city like a dreamy urban playground. The perfect place to stage adventures, and then there are its heroes. Arnold Shortman, a pensive 4th grader, Helga Paki, a mercurial girl with a fierce temper, and Gerald Hosen, which Arnold's best friend and the group's most gifted recounter. Hey Arnold seemed endlessly wove urban legend with the real-world expectations, and treats its characters' challenges and triumphs with the weight they deserve. Delivered simpleton without becoming a satire, and taught its young viewers lessons without condescension. That might be why Hey Arnold remains a pleasure to rewatch even as an adult. Its understated whimsy, along with its undercurrent of melancholy and tender optimism, are still one of a kind. Batman the Animated Series, influenced heavily by Tim Burton's stark adaptations of Gotham City, in the stylish world of noir that inspired the creation of Bruce Wayne, the world's greatest detective, in 1939. Batman the Animated Series remains to this day the gold standard against which all other comic book animated series are measured. With an unmistakable vision style that the creators named Dark Deco, this show, which ran only for 85 episodes, produced depictions of pop culture, most famous characters. DC comic enthusiasts will hold up Kevin's runaway voice as Batman and Mark Hamill's gonzo version of the Joker against all other screen depictions. The show even generated an iconic image of his very own. The Joker's comedic, psychotic sidekick, Harley Quinn. Though Batman has always flirted with darkness through the works of Frank Miller, this particular show is where the gothic grit of Bruce Wayne and the eccentric extremes of a memorable rogues gallery create the perfect tonal balance that DC films are still struggling to recapture to this day. Bob's Burgers, 2011 to present. I was reluctant to get into Bob's Burgers, but I don't I don't like the title. I just didn't like the way it was being plugged by a certain subset of comedians on Twitter. It all seemed just so smug and cutesy and exhausting, like parks and recreation memes in cartoon form. I'm glad I didn't heed my intentional revulsion, though, because when I finally did start watching Leonard Bird and Dan Directory's wonderful series, it won me over instantly. Bob's Burgers is funny and sweet and strange, both transgressive and traditional. Idiosyncratic prey to the family and its odd satellites. The voiced by H. Don Benjamin, Don Mitz, Christian Settle, E. Gene Merman, and most crucially, the Rob Roberts is intricate and pacific, remarkable credible family bond from the isolated confines of recording both. I love the words Bob's Burgers for the way it manages homey quaintness alongside wacky adventure, sardonic observation, and a defiant spirit of sex positivity. If it were only up to me, I wouldn't only name Bob's Burgers the best animated series since The Simpsons. I know that the show's true heir apparent, winning portrait of Hamlet and all, relevant, alright. So, Steven's Universe, 2013 to present. Steven's Universe is a series that countless queer people wish they had grown up. Rebecca Sugar, who identifies as a non-binary woman, is blazing trails with her casually heroic approach to the LGBTQ representation in children's media. Four-time Emmy nominee, the Cartoon Network series stars a remarkably compassionate boy named Steven and his cohort of a humanoid gemstone warriors who do their best to defend the planet while also trying to get by. Human or not, the characters on Steven Universe display a range of emotions: anxiety, rage, love, resentment, pride, with a level of thoughtfulness rarely explored in the kids' programming. And with its emotional intelligence, nuanced character development, and inherent queerness, Steven Universe has an appeal that transcends age. We need to let children know that they belong in this world, Sugar has said. In Steven's Universe, child or not, you know you belong. Adventure Time, 2010 to 2008. Creator Pendleton Ward has said that Adventure Time, starring Jake the dog and Finn the human, is meant to be a show that everyone can watch. The series itself has achieved that goal, set in fantastic and post-apocalyptic land of RWBY. This is a cartoon for kids that also manages to explore the complexity of human nature, all of its contradictions. Adventure Time is often silly, set in a candy-coated, Tyler-colored landscape, but it also doesn't do much to absorb the fact that Finn and Jake are a child and his mutant dog friend simply trying to survive in a world where civilization has been wiped out, in all of its surreal glory. Adventure Time takes a grim backstory and weaves it into a heartwarming tale of friendship, adventure, the compelling narrative, and complex characters. It is simply a ultra break. SpongeBob SquarePants, 1989 to present. As land dwellers who lurk the internet know, few cartoons have more enduring cultural relevance than SpongeBob SquarePants. Steven Hilbert cut its teeth selected for Rocco's Modern Life. His magnum opus is a gentle series with a sunnier sensibility, though it retains the earlier show's wacky sense of humor. Just try not to be charmed by the particular sea sponge and his aquatic friends, including a dopey starfish named Patrick Star, the cranky cephalopods Squidward tentacles, and introduced Texan squirrel named Sandy Cheeks. Even now, nearly 2 decades after his debut, The series continues to air new episodes following 2 film adaptations, one in 2004 and 2015 in the SpongeBob SquarePants musical, which debuted in Chicago, opened on Broadway. Online, SpongeBob moonlights as a perpetual meme machine. Unlike mysterious ramifications of Patrick's mind, it's easy to understand why. The show is a perfect storm of pure visual style, kooky humor, and absurdism. It's no wonder that almost 20 years later, one little sponge still managed to launch into viewers' souls like a grappling hook. Big Mouth, 2017 to present. Earnest and gross-out humor might seem like comfortable bedfellows, yet when Big Mouth premiered last year, it proved that animated series can indeed successfully walk the tightrope between the two. After this show about puberty and how can one tell the story of adolescence without both tenderness and insight and sentiment, the Netflix comedy follows a gag of preteens and the bodies and interests begin to change. It might sound like a rote territory. Episodes cover predictable milestones like, first periods, erections, and relationships that only last days. Thanks to Young's love, capitalist gaze, but Big Mouth is a lot smarter and more whimsical than it had to be. The characters are haunted by, hormone monsters. More than just one episode features traumatic, disgusting sometimes, but it's all in service of a notable goal, proving one of TV's most honest depictions of growing up. Besides, it's hard to think better cast to pull off like Nick Lowe, John McLeary, Maya Rudolph, Jesse Klein, Fred Aronson, and Jenny Stake. Futurama, 1999 to 2013. Matt Groening's follow-up The Simpsons leaves behind the dynamics of a family sitcom for the arguably more grown-up world of workspace and symbol comedy, featuring the story of a present-day human who actually gets fast-forward 1,000 years in the future. The snappy repartee and hundreds of characters that make up Green's universe are replicated here, with the added madcap of energy of alien species, advanced technology, and every science fiction trope known to humanity. Futurama paved the way for the existence of shows like Rick and Morty, the newest show that's on its list, and surpassed the success of this science fiction animated gem. But for the dog episode alone, Futurama is still an all-timer, and President Milson Nixon pickled head in a jar represents its cynical, sharp art. Roku's Modern Life, 1993 to 1996. The elastic cool world of Joe McCurry's O-Town is all filled with bold colors, geometric shapes, and gross-out humor of many beloved Nickelodeon Nicktoons. But added the eye-popping stunts and barf jokes, a sternly calming, somewhat depressing story of succumbing to the absurd banality of modern life, led by Wallaby Rocco, new to the very Midwestern locale of O-Town. Rocco's Modern Life told stories of malfunctioning appliances, condescending advertisements, baffling group rituals, aerobic sightseeing, Lemmy's classes, and corporate anonymity. Roku is a naive, up-heeled soul who seemingly attracts psychological victories. The show's tone is immeasurable, disgusting, wry, cheerful, and glowing with the technicolor of the false premise of stolen life. Rick and Morty, 2013 to present. So John Harmon and Justin Ronalds have seen Rick and Morty is exceptional in a kind of a scary way. It's easily one of the most brilliant inventions of limited information brain, the depersonalized trolling, anger-driven entitlement that borrows down under the surface of online conflict. Not long ago, a subset of fans waged a harassment campaign against the show's female writers and threw mob-site tantrums at McDonald's over its limited supplies of solution sauce. But let these demonstrations indicate that Rick and Morty, a show that inspires great devotion, a twist on the back of the future is Doc and Morty and Rick and Morty showcases the universal ultimate of a mad scientist and his fumbling, pathetic grandson. An episode might feature a trans-planetary battle, murder Ricks and Mortys from parallel universes, and plumb the difficulty of intimacy without passing for breath. Rick will, however, pause long enough to belch, spill filth on himself, and yet yell obscenities at his family. It's a testament to the show's skills that is somehow all part of his charm. RWBY, 1997-2001. Through the snarky, unbashful feminist vibe of this one seems in direct contradiction to the genial, boyish humor of the other. Dora, in fact, is a spin-off of Beavis the Butthead, created to be a foil for those snorting, AC/DC-loving dummies. Dora eventually graduated from background stick-in-the-mud to a truth-telling hero in her own right. Her thick glasses, combat boots, and deadpan delivery echoed a 90s archetype assessed by the Ghost World graphic novel and the comedic styles of Johann Raffaello. But in the beginning, that distinctly female and subversive sensibility to the largely male-dominant world of teen animation, Dora created a virtual fan space for disenfranchised, eye-rolling young women to sneer at our sick, sad world. The show was a huge hit for MTV at the time, and when the network brand was as much mocking the cool kids as it was about courting their attention and dollars, Dora not only punched up a vain popular girls and simple-minded jocks, but also found room to sympathize with everyone, even clueless parents, and skewer his own overwhelming whiteness through the lens of overachieving black teens Jody and Mac. Let's not forget one of 90s animation's all-time Trent Lane. But also above, RWBY put outsiders like Jane Lane and Doria more genderful on the inside before the nerd and geek became synonymous with mainstream. So Clone High, 2002 to 2003. If there were any justice, Clone High would last it longer. Its simple but ingenious premise: our heroes are the teenage clones of famous figures like Cleopatra and Joan of the Arc, loving, learning, sharing, judging, and going to high school together. It was broad enough to spark decades worth of inventive teen super parody, sly historical nerdery, earwormy one-liners, and truly inspired wordplay. It secretly planned to hold his students captive at the zoo like an amusement park he would call Coney Island. The shows are arguably responsible for cloning the term promposal. If it was an early showcase for the zany fourth wall, Boston aesthetic that creators Pill Lord and Chris Miller would eventually bring to big screens like the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street to much acclaim. But their later projects are much better known. None are fully realized as Clone High, a minute joke machine that still produced to have real heart, thanks mostly to plots around Love Horn Jones' unrequited passion for her best friend, Abe Lincoln, which is Willie Forte, Atlas. The world wasn't quite ready for a cartoon, but a bumble-butted JFK palling around with a party animal clone of Mahatma Gandhi. Dismal ratings led to premature cancellation after a single perfect season. After all, numbers don't lie. Then we have the Animatics, which is 1993 to 1998. Animatics was just a cartoon. It was chaotic, old-fashioned variety content, one that was a Peabody Award in its inaugural season. Report to the title, the show reminded the Peabody Committee of the glory days of Hollywood animation, with the backing of Steven Spielberg, frequent celebrity cameos, and the character's home base for the Warner Bros. Studios a lot. Hollywood was indeed central to Animatics DNA. Story goes, animated series Jonko, Walker, and Dot Warner were locked away in the studio's Walter Tower in the 1930s. Then emerged 6 decades later to unleash their brand of wild humor to the world, as well as more than a few exceptionally catchy educational musical numbers like the United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, and Peru. They bridged the gap between Hollywood's golden age, particularly the inspired lunacy of Bugs Bunny and Company, and the present day with satirical edge and pop culture references at plenty, the sort that appealed to children and adults alike. 2 more seasons coming to Hulu. Jonko, Walker, and Dot are getting ready to come once again. So, BoJack Horseman. The age of peak TV is crowded with shows about show business in Los Angeles, and nostalgia and self-maintained male anti-heroes, but none of them had a candle to BoJack. While this happens to be the most moving comedy of, funniest drama, its early days eccentric creation seemed like a minor blip, the 2-joke concept. 90s sitcom had been to navigate 21st century Hollywood. The D got destroyed in episode 6, He's a Horse. 4th season went on. Netflix originally transformed from a simplistic showbiz satire into something deeper, richer, and altogether more dawning, a series that tackled all those peak TV pet topics, but one wasn't afraid to thoroughly undertone its own premise. Why should we care about Jack Horseman's redemption, and what does redemption really mean anyway? As renowned by Rob Roscoe's Bird, talented writers, and an endless imaginative animation team handled by Lisa Hannah Walt, his anthropomorphic animals and occasionally, populate BoJack are richly loved, capable of provoking both belly laughs and a heartbreak, sometimes with a span of a few seconds. Yet BoJack doesn't feel disjointed. It's similarly hilarious and haunting, self-conscious and sweeping, gravely serious and unbashful silly. The Simpsons may have invented the modern blink and you'll miss it gag, but BoJack has perfected the form. You can spend hours combing each frame for hidden jokes and puns capable of impressing even the most seasoned dad. The only real knock against it is that between those flights of fantasy can be a tremendous bummer. The sort of show where nobody is allowed to be happy for very long. In the most relentless moments, there's enough humor to keep BoJack from sinking as low as BoJack often descends, and enough potency to keep viewers coming back, ideally for several seasons to come. South Park, 1997 to present. First things first, the show is not perfect. Trey Parker and Matt Stone's offensive comic masterpiece, 1997, starts its 22nd season this. Let's see. Its beginnings in the Clinton evoke relied mostly on shock value and gross out humor. Its Obama-era episodes were funny, but not always incisive. In the age of Trump, it's fair to wonder if the show may have lost its way entirely. But those glory days simply were glorious. At its peak, South Park is still capable of being a sickeningly funny Scott Turman Must Die, and socially astute. Here comes the neighborhood. It's real madding. In a good way, few post-Simpsons animated shows have managed to better ram their way into cultural lexicon through as mystery as South Park. Few have enough iconic characters to fill a yearbook, or as many classic episodes waiting to be referenced whenever a relevant current events crop up. When I think of bad CEO apologies, oil spills, or Chernobyl, I think of South Park. World of Warcraft, South Park. Poverty telephones, Steven Sylvan, Mossmo, Scientologist, Lost Underwear, Cats and Heat, NASCAR, Plant Food Bands, Chili, The Wood of Succubus, Redheads, Jennifer Lopez, Red-Headed Hooded Jackets, Mild Molarity Jokes, Woodland Creatures. If we were into always the butt of every South Park gag, we were also in on the joke. At its best, the series had defined, maybe even predicted the culture. Often it's really funny. From the looks of it, the rest of the television is catching up. So, this is a brief insight into American animation and its influence in the genre. All the different shows referenced and discussed today all hit a post-Simpsons era where it's still being relevant in the fact of shows being very diverse and overall having a stake in viewership, viewers alike, anime aesthetics, its own genre, comedy, humor, to other sources of different content aging to different people, different stories to tell. And with that, this concludes this particular episode of American animation discussion and the post-Simpsons era of animation in America. So yes, these are all original animation by American Western society. So the United States does have an interesting aesthetic of animation that in its catalog to offer. So don't be afraid to go about it and overall like what you want and try to reference what you want to do more. So thank you very much. And this is MC Anime signing in out. Bye.
This concludes another episode of MC Anime Podcast. MC Anime Podcast is available on podcast directories like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. We also have our website at mcanimepodcast.com. If you want to directly support us, then follow Patreon blog MC Anime. Finally, if you want services for hire, then we're available on Fiverr for audio and video production, graphic design, idea consulting, and blog and article writing.